Hello, and thank you for joining us. Today's guest is Elissa Lansdell. She is an intuitive coach, and she is one of the original Dreaming Women. So if you don't know what the Dreaming Women are, we're going to talk about that. But the first thing we're going to talk about, welcome, Elissa. Let me welcome you.
Hi, it's so good to be here, Mary.
Thank you for coming. Sorry, I just jumped right
Thanks
into
for having
chatting.
me. I love it.
Um, there's so much I want to talk to you about, which is probably why I was jumping the gun. But the first thing is, Elissa is from Canada. And so many of us here in the United States, it's obvious that our
Mhm.
algorithms are being messed with. And
Definitely.
it seems like this isn't true, but we kind of have state-run media now. They're in control
Mhm.
of so much
Yep.
of our media. And I keep coming across videos that are saying, America, wake up. Canada is preparing for war. You don't know what's going on. So I thought, well, Alyssa is from Canada, so can you please tell us what is being said in Canada about America? Are you really preparing for war?
We are too friendly for that, eh? Definitely not. We are not preparing for war. Fear mongering is the way that they keep us down. And I'm sure in this conversation we will talk about that, how, your fear is literally being harvested by those dark powers. So anytime I can help alleviate the fear, I mean, listen, if there's a saber-toothed tiger running at you, be fearful, right? That's why our fear was programmed into us biologically. Otherwise, let's try to get informed the best we can. As you mentioned, I mean, everything has become state TV. I am a former member of the media here in Canada, and I have not believed the messages they've given since then. So this is not new to me. What I have done is step away from mainstream media of all kinds for the last little while, for the last couple of months, and I feel fantastic as a result. So I cannot tell you this is exactly what's going on, but I will say that yes, we always have to. We have to be agile in this situation in which we find ourselves. And when we have, the president of our closest neighbor and friend threatening us with tariffs, of course we've got to mobilize and try to get. And when I say mobilize, our military couldn't possibly. Like, let me just put it that way. I'm not talking from a military perspective, but from a
No, no.
policy perspective and economically, there may be some economic warfare in the sense that a lot of Canadians I know, my parents included, are now making sure we buy Canadian. A lot then again, we are also not buying these Coca-Cola products because we know what Coca-Cola has done recently. So we're aware, I'd say most of us, we watch our CBC, which is kind of our government funded network. I guess it's like the equivalent of BBC. And so all of this is a roundabout way of saying we will enact our own economic measures should those measures be taken by your president and his administration. But that is not going to happen. I am not, I am an intuitive, but you don't need to be intuitive to know that this is all a bunch of uh, what's the word? It's theater.
Bluster, bravado,
It's
and bluster.
bluster. Bluster was the word that I was trying to think of. It is just meant to instill fear. We have so much more power than we thought we did. We the people. We the Canadians, we the Americans. Like I've lived in your beautiful country and I'm telling you, you have so much more power than you think. So do not worry. We still love you. We still support you, the people. We really dislike what your president is trying to do right now. And I say trying, but I do believe, like a lot of it, it's not going to come to pass. Everybody was worried about the TikTok ban. And I said, it's not happening. And I had people messaging me, on TikTok going, that's not true. It's happening. And I said, it's not happening. In my world, in the world I choose to inhibit, it is not happening. And it did not happen. And it will not happen. Now, we may decide to move to another platform, but that will be our choice. There are a lot of things that he has threatened, and maybe you know more about that than I do because I've been avoiding mainstream media, but a lot of things never came to pass. I had somebody saying, I'm worried about my dad. He's a veteran. You don't understand, Alyssa. You're making light of this. It's not. I said, I'm not making light of it. It's a very serious thing, but it is not happening. And she said, no, but it is like it's happening. It's going to happen. And I said, no, it actually isn't. Like, I don't think you're understanding me. I understand your fear. I get it. It's not happening. And sure enough, he pulled back on that too. So there were, there are a lot of things being threatened. Don't believe the hype. Trust your heart. And the reason I call myself intuition influencer, which is kind of an obnoxious name, is because I want you to get in touch with your own intuition and say, what does this feel right to me? Does this feel real? And so you can ask yourself, does it seem right? Does it feel true to me that Canada would go to war, would declare war on us? You know the answer. I didn't even have to tell you that big long-winded answer. I hope you edit this, Mary, because I've been yapping too much already.
No, 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 it's fine. And thank you for that, because I
Yeah.
did see some where they were like troops on the border.
No, no
It's
troops.
so crazy over here. And the thing
Yeah.
is, there is stuff happening here. People are
Mhm.
losing their jobs.
That
They're
is true.
losing their
That is
benefits.
true.
It's
Yeah.
we.
Yeah.
I don't know which president you're talking about when you say our president, because we seem to have a few of them.
True.
Um, yeah,
We know who the
and
real president
the
is right
one with
now.
all
Yeah.
the money seems to have
Yep.
bought our country and the Oval
Absolutely.
Office. And
Absolutely.
so
That's
anyway, there's. I mentioned before, I did put out a video the other day about activism, but also staying positive and not feeding the
yes.
fear. And I do
Yes.
want to share with you something I mentioned. It happened to me during a meditation about the dreaming women and the 4 a.m. club and all of that. But first, do you want to explain who they are, just for the maybe two or
Sure.
three people that don't know and have
Yeah.
never heard of
Yeah.
the
I
dreaming
mean, it
women?
seems to be very exclusive to TikTok. And if you haven't been on that platform, you are in a different world. Like I have a lot of friends who I will mention this to, and they'll say, no, what is that? So yes, the 4 a.m. club, or sometimes known as the 3 a.m. club, the Dreaming Women, came about November 6th. And that happened to be the day when I discovered my true purpose. And I'll talk about that later. But so many of us, and I know yourself included, woke up at about 3 or 4 a.m. and looked at our phones, got the news, knew that something was wrong, but felt an overwhelming sense of calm and reassurance. At least I'm speaking for myself and others that I've heard. And knowing that everything was going to be all right, but that something wasn't right. And we only know that others have experienced this because of this platform, TikTok, where it was Gia Prism, creator, who said, hey, did you all get up at this time? And we all started sharing our stories. And it was not just women, mostly women, but dreaming people of all genders who felt that call. And what we have come to believe from all of that is that it is our divine feminine literally waking us up. We are awakened. It took something like this, dare I say, stolen election, for us to understand the power that we have. And I'm looking at my clock and seeing 1:23. So there you go. All right. It is the beginning of a new movement. And it's been a
Okay.
beautiful thing.
All right. Thank you for sharing that.
Mhm.
So now throughout the few months after the election, and I was in Mexico on a divine feminine retreat,
Oh, wow.
in caves with portals to other world. It was unbelievable what happened to me there, and I'll share about that, but not during this show. And I have shared a bit, but it was transformational. But I didn't have the immediate sense of calm.
Okay.
I didn't really sleep very well at all. I
Yeah.
felt I couldn't adjust to. I thought this. It's like when you hear about someone you love dying suddenly, and you're
Yes.
like, this isn't. No,
Your
this
brain's
isn't
trying to make
right.
sense
Yeah,
of it.
it's
Yeah.
too
Yeah.
much. Like you can't
Hmm.
even absorb it, and then maybe you have a moment of normalcy, and then it hits you, and you're like, you can't absorb it, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so for me, I was with a group of spiritual women, and this is what I want to share with you that might help, because for the couple months after, all the dreaming women, all of us were like, this is not going to happen. And it didn't come without any backup either. Like I said, AOC put out a
Mhm.
video almost
Yep.
right away saying,
Right.
what happened is so massive. It's going to take a minute, but we're on it. Hakeem
Yeah.
Jeffries, remember his press? I mean,
I
it's
remember
not
it
like we
all.
were just making stuff up. There was
Yeah.
the people who did
Well,
data analysis. Sorry, go ahead.
oh, sorry. I was just going to say, even before the election, we heard him say, we've got the votes. We've got
Yes,
enough votes. We've got a little secret, don't we,
exactly.
Mike Johnson? I mean, we knew, we saw, we felt, more to the point, the feeling of watching those Kamala Harris rallies. We felt the movement. We knew what was happening. We saw the contrast on the other
Mhm.
side. So
Yes.
Apologies
Right.
for
So you
interrupting,
thought
but we knew.
who would
Yeah.
choose that except for the really racist people? No, nobody would choose that. And I was privileged enough to go to one of those rallies. And I'm telling you, the joy and love and
Yes.
hope in those rooms, it was
Yeah.
just like, of course, this is the rebirthing of the divine feminine.
Indeed.
It's joy and it's love. So in the past few months, we kept saying, we know this isn't on the up and up, that something is wrong here and it's going to be taken care of. And then we saw absolutely nothing happening. And then
Yeah.
we saw him getting sworn in. And then we're watching our government just being dismantled left and right. And it's like people are filing lawsuits. But
Yeah.
anyway, so it was so puzzling because I've never been so sure about anything in my life. And even in these past few months, as all the dreaming women and intuitives would be sharing, this is not going to happen. You said no hand on Bible, and guess what he didn't do? Right?
Isn't that wild? I
Yeah.
found that coming out of my mouth and not really understanding that, but yeah, really
Yeah.
interesting. No hand was ever on Bible.
So I want to
Yeah.
share so yesterday I was in meditation, or
Yeah.
yeah, it was yesterday, and it actually made me weep. True or not, I always say whenever I share anything, if this doesn't fit for you, throw it on the side of the road.
Amen.
Because we
Yeah.
are meant to inspire, never instruct. Nobody
Share.
has
Yeah,
all the
absolutely.
answers for anybody else. And I do believe part of her rebirthing is us remembering our own inner power and trusting ourselves, right?
That's it.
So
That's it.
here's what I found out in the past few weeks, and I got glimpses of it even on that retreat where
Right.
I couldn't even talk about this. Politics is low energy, like they're just staying out of it. They don't want to know anything. However, I noticed in the past 6 months or so, I watch a lot of spiritual channels on YouTube, and people are channeling left, right. There's all kinds of channelers, which is fine. I mean, we all can do whatever we decide we can do, right? But
Yeah.
I wonder if people are also taught discernment, because what I've seen in the past 6 months, if you look at any of these channels and look at their headlines, they all
Mhm.
started leaning toward fear. Beware, 2025,
Yeah.
prepare.
Yeah.
And everyone I watched, and I stopped actually watching them in the last few months because I was like, this is starting to feel really like fear propaganda to me. All
Yeah.
these channelers were saying how awful 2025 is going to be. But here's the thing that always confused me is they supported this man. They supported him because these channelers were all telling them that our democracy had to crash. It had to go bad. And, it was like, is this really happening? So to me, this is what I think the rebirthing of the divine feminine, part of it is that I think we missed is everything having to crash is old masculine energy. I didn't hear anyone saying it's time for humanity to make a shift, and we can do it through love,
Yes.
cooperation, through joy.
Yes.
They peddled the destruction of our government over and over,
Yeah.
hailed this man. They gave him attributes he doesn't have. He came back from the future to save us. He's a former Templar. Him and this other guy running our government now
Hmm.
are Knights Templars. They had to make up. I'm sorry, I'm
Yep.
going to say makeup. I'm not always
Of
careful with
course.
words,
It's
just to warn you. But
BS. Yeah.
they,
Yep.
but the thing is, because politics were low energy, they didn't use their own critical thinking skills and listen to this man speak. Because if you listen to him speak, you know it's all hatred, division, whatever. So they just listen to all these channelers on all these stations that are all running these, and that's because that's what we've been programmed with, is fear, right? So we
Hmm.
go to it. That's why we doom scroll. It's like an addiction, like a drug
Yeah.
addict. Like we know it's
Yeah.
ruining our lives, but we're going to keep feeding fear, fear, fear. So
Yeah.
this is what I got yesterday, because it's been so puzzling to me. I love this community that started online, and they're very much critical thinking skills. We're not going to pretend what's happening isn't happening. We're not going to
Hmm.
get sucked into it and
Yeah.
woe is me. We're going to take some positive actions, civil disobedience, whatever it is, boycotting, things like that. But what came to me during meditation yesterday is this is why things are so, they can't settle in, because it's energy, right? You
Hmm.
bring about what you think about when you have mass consciousness all thinking about the same thing.
Yeah.
But I'm just going to say this, if it doesn't fit for anybody, that's fine. But this is the first time in history that love energy was being combined with, it's always love or fear, right? But it comes out as
Right.
hate
Hmm.
energy, and they had the same goal,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
The
that's
the people
interesting.
that wanted to destroy the government and take it over, that was their goal. And all these women in these spiritual groups, very well meaning, very beautiful souls, were blindly following along, not realizing this is religion, really.
Yeah.
Go to the
Yeah.
priest, he'll
Dogma.
tell you about the magic being in the sky and what you should
Yeah.
do. And it's what they're all doing now. And I see them on the boards. Like they're like, when is the darkness going to happen? They even have them investing in cyber. Like they're
Yeah.
telling them to
That's,
invest in money and
yeah.
stuff. It's and
Yeah.
they're good people. And sometimes I can be not as kind and watchful with my words as I should be.
You're
But
human.
yeah, I've pretty much been rejected from these community, not rejected, but very condescending to me, like you'll get there. Just keep working
Hmm.
on yourself
Hmm.
because I'm loud and vocal, I'm saying these things
Yeah.
because they're very much this is all meant to be. And I did say to one woman, because she was like, it's all got to happen. I said, a lot of people are going to suffer from this. And she was like, oh, they volunteered for this. Like it's a movie. That's what it's like
Mm-hmm.
to them.
Hmm.
And also, most of them, all the ones I've seen are white women, of course, because you don't hear any black women or people in danger saying, this is. So
Yeah.
they voted, these beautiful soul women thought they were doing the right thing. I've heard people talk and bought their books and seen it in their books. Like,
Yeah.
I'm like, am I losing my mind? How are
Yeah.
they
You do feel
thinking
like
this
that.
this evil man who laughs and brags about assaulting women is some kind of savior from the divine?
Hmm.
So I
It,
think that's what happened is it was this energy that it was focused on the one thing. So it manifested in, I agree with you, not a legal or fair way, but it's a very disjointed energy because it's not clear cut. It's not this is love and this is fear. Does that make any sense?
yeah, it does. And it's been very discombobulating for me too. I mean, that's probably the word of the day for me as I look at what's happening. I had a mentor who actually I'd say is largely responsible for me even being here when I started doing this work almost a year ago. And she just, I mean, she was able to channel some amazing things for me. This one thing that she channeled, I have up in on my bathroom mirror, and it says, speak in whatever form or gather in whatever form of love speaks through you, and you will change the world. And this has come to be. This is what we are doing as Dreaming Women. She has been such an inspiration. And I found out very recently that she thinks that this person running your country or supposedly running your country is the Messiah. And
Mm.
I'm I have a political science degree. I have an unhealthy obsession with US politics. I have been, in the past felt like following all of this and watching as much as I can coming out of the candidates' mouths was going to somehow help things. Well, it did help me to see what was actually going on, and I agree with you. And so it is discombobulating to, like, I felt like I was in the upside down world when I found out that this mentor felt so differently, believed so differently than I did. Now, my spiritual path has taken me so far that I don't, my ego is very, very low. So at least I can take that whole thing out of it, that whole like I can't believe you don't agree with me thing. That has nothing to do with it. It's really I do believe that many of us and some of these women that you're talking about, we do all want the same things as you say, but it's how we are getting them. I would also on a very spiritual level agree that we choose who we are and the struggles that we have in our lifetime. And I fully appreciate how offensive that is to someone who's not privileged like me, who does not live where I live, who does not have this white skin, who I totally get that. And that's not something that I mean, I'm sharing it on your podcast as part of the discourse, but it's not something, it does not affect the suffering. It doesn't have anything to do with the suffering that they are in real time experiencing. So, I mean, I have my theories and we can talk about them if you want to in terms of what is happening and why it feels so disorienting and
Yeah,
um,
absolutely,
you know,
please.
Yeah, well, I mean, and mine is wild. To your point, take what resonates and leave the rest. But I had an epiphany on February 4th. I remember, and that was another turning point. Just when I think I can't, it can't get more profound, it gets more profound. Just when we think things can't get more chaotic, they get more chaotic. But on this night, I said, I've been making these predictions. I feel a real responsibility to the people who follow me. This is the first time I am, I mean, since my TV days that I have a following. And I was thinking, I was getting these clear indications, A, that he would never take office. B, that, or I'll go back, that he would never be voted in, and then that he would never. And this was not, I understand wishful thinking is part of this. And I sat in deep meditation and contemplation. And I asked my guides, and they will tell me the truth. They will not lie to me, unfortunately. When I want them to, they don't lie to me. And am I delusional? Am I, is this wishful thinking? Am I biased? Well, yes, I'm biased. And I will get a yes for that. Yes, I'm biased. Am I biased in this vision that I'm getting? No. Okay. So I believe we are currently living in two separate timelines on top of each other. And that was the epiphany I had, where I thought, we are seeing what is happening in both timelines at once. It is, as you say, there's such contrast right now, the best of us and the worst of us in the same space, supposedly. But I do believe that, I mean, if you talk about the 5D and the 3D timelines, I believe that they're enmeshed right now. And so I was seeing things that could be, or that are in a different timeline, but we're not quite there. And I felt like there was this veil. And I realized that the turning point, and with the help of other Dreaming Women, we had an emergency meeting that night and created the Dreaming Women Council, because we all realized that it is, and we can say names, can't we, on this podcast, that it is Musk who is the difference. So in the other timeline, he and you can listen to this as a fairy tale, an interesting, story. But in the other timeline, he never was able to buy Twitter. He did not he did not amass that kind of power, and therefore this, I don't know, what would you call it, a really nefarious collaboration would not have happened. And this stealing of the election through Starlink, yes, I said it, and you can edit that out if you will, but that is my
I
firm
will
belief,
not.
right? I mean,
Will not.
Trump told us on the 19th that,
Yeah.
in terms of what he did in one state, and we know he did it in all the states. And so I believe that that was really the difference. And I do think that as humanity, we together need to really see that darkness. And that is why I find it so interesting that Martin Luther King quote came out in Kamala's concession speech. Earlier that day, I posted that quote on a post on TikTok, because I realized it just came to me. It was more of a channel thing. We needed to get dark. And I don't want to sound like those women you're talking about, but we needed it to get dark. Now, how dark is the question? And this is, as humans, we are throwing our hands up and saying, does it really have to get this bad? How bad does it have to get? Now, some will say theoretically, we need to pull back that slingshot really far to launch further ahead. And I do believe that we will. Once things turn, it is going to be absolutely beautiful. I believe that we will see more in this lifetime in terms of peace, joy, love, harmony than we ever thought possible. But we are in that really messy in between right now. And so I don't know, what do you think about the timelines? I don't even know what your feeling on that is, or
Well, I'm thinking for myself and other people, like, what does that mean? Because I want to live in that other timeline right now,
Yeah.
where none of this stuff happened. And this is kind of where I get stuck, because this is kind of where a lot of the women in these white women in the spiritual circles are, is don't think about that. Don't even look at that. And I said this in the video when I was asking other women, how are you navigating these waters spiritually? Because I cannot just envision love and light. It's like putting my fingers in my ears while they're screaming next door as people are being,
Yeah.
hiding in their houses, they're being dragged out. I mean, it sounds like I'm being dramatic, but people are
No,
being
I wish you
dragged out
were.
their
Yeah.
workplaces and stuff. They're losing their jobs. I just saw a veteran say there's no more volunteers, but they've started They fired 1,000 veterans, if you can believe that, 1,000 veterans from the VA today. So there is stuff happening. So how do we navigate this? How do we acknowledge? Because the advice in the spiritual circles that I used to, I don't fit anymore, but are basically don't even think about that. You just have to focus on love and light.
Right.
And that feels like thoughts and prayers after school shootings to me.
Sure, sure it does. And that you can't do that. You have to do what feels right for you. And I believe we all, and here's the call that I think is so beautiful in all this. We are all called to use our gifts, to use, what resonates. And this is my whole thing. Go within. You tell you what the action plan is. You decide what feels good to you. Does it feel good to get right in there and protest? And I would say if it feels good to do that, then you are keeping your vibration high and you are taking action. Beautiful. If, to help somebody, stand up for somebody, get in harm's way even. If that is what feels right to you and that is your calling, then you do that. For somebody like me, it's been a fascinating, I will just say my abilities, my psychic abilities, my intuitive abilities have skyrocketed since November. And I know this is why I am here. And I know that as an empath, I cannot watch that. And that is not doing this. That's saying, I'm going to read about it. I'm going to hear about it. I'm going to learn about it. I'm going to observe it. And that's all I need to do in order to take action. And I'm going to help the way I can. If I actually saw some of these scenes, it's like with animal welfare, when I can't look at the videos, just seeing that the video exists, I go, okay, I'm going to take action. How can I do that? How can I stand up in my community for those who can't stand up for themselves? I don't need to see it. So for me, my vibration stays high in giving myself a bit of a buffer from it, but not ignoring it, if that makes sense. And I feel like I can only say this. It's been such a wonderful time where I can feel my guides. They're here right now. I hear it as a ringing in my ear lately. They're here, telling me what feels right, what doesn't. They're like, yeah, you're right. Oh, it's really loud. But the other thing that happens is I feel a light infusion, and I didn't know what that even meant. But the other dreaming women were like, oh yes, we know what you're talking about. I said, I don't know what I'm talking about, but in the middle of the night I will wake up and I feel like my heart is infused with light. So I feel as though it's like I'm being topped up with light so that I can help share it, so that I can do what I do best, I'd say, which is to help mobilize people, to help keep people's vibration high, because I really believe that, the more we can find the ways that really resonate with us to keep our vibration high, the more of us, the less it matters about those dark forces, the less power the dark forces have. Again, they harvest your fear. Monsters Inc. was telling us something, and it was a download a couple of weeks ago. It's like that they were telling us that literally our energy is everything. And so decide how to keep your vibration high, not in a way of ignoring or sticking your head in the sand. I've had a lot of talks with my guides about that. Am I just in avoidance? Am I in avoidance? Am I putting my head in the sand? No. It's like, no, this is what you were meant to do. You're meant to channel messages. You are meant to share that and share hope that is not toxic positivity, that says, I'm here with you, and feel what you have to feel. Feel that fear and release it. And that's something that I never knew how to do. I think we're in a world full of people who never knew how to emotionally regulate. It's why I've become an emotion code practitioner, so I can help release trapped emotional energy from trauma, because people have not been able to process it. So again, I'm very new to this. I'm a student myself, but what I learned from, I don't know if his book is here. Yeah, Letting Go, Dr. David Hawkins, a beautiful book for anybody who is really struggling right now, because it's like a balm for the soul when you read it. So simply written, and it shows you how and why to simply feel the feelings, welcome them in, acknowledge them, validate your feeling, and then release them. Because that way we get closer to our true state of being, which is, as you say, joy, love. We're just trying to release resistance to that. And the resistance is coming at us from all over the place. And as humans, we were never made to be bombarded with this much information from all parts of the globe. We weren't. And so it's, I don't want anybody to think that I'm, dismissing it. Again, my role is different from your role, is different from another neighbor's role. So the only way you know is to sit with yourself in contemplation and decide where's my heart and gut? Where are my heart and gut telling me to go?
Thank you for that.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
makes so much sense to me. And this is what I think, especially as women, especially if you
Mhm.
were raised in a Christian religion. I think most religions, but I'm not that well versed on all the religions of the world, so I
Me
can't make
neither.
a
Yeah.
blanket statement, though I tend to do it all the time. But certainly with my Christianity, spiritual women are quiet. They're subservient. They're not loud. Look at the Virgin Mary, who had a baby and never had sex, a Middle Eastern Jew with blonde hair and blue eyes and fair skin. And I don't know, does she say any words in the Bible? Maybe a handful or something. So this is who we're supposed to emulate. And I think so much is that it's in our subconscious and we don't even realize it. So when this divine feminine that's been rising up in me, that's not her. And what I've come to understand on my journey, and I agree with you, I say this all the time, no one can possibly know what another soul's journey is in this timeline, on this plane, right? And
Yeah.
it's very clear to me, I've spent a lot of monastic lifetimes. I've spent a lot of religious lifetimes. I was an anchoress. Everything was quiet, 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 subservient, allowing myself. And I was determined that this lifetime, I was not going to repeat that pattern. Too
I
much
love that.
damage was done to
Yeah.
myself and other people because I was too afraid to speak up. So in this
Huh?
lifetime, I said, I'm going to speak up and I'm going to screw up. I do screw up. I talk. I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. Sometimes I say things too bluntly or whatever. I don't mean it, but I would rather err in that way than
Mhm.
to be quiet when
100%.
it's time for me to start speaking up. And that's, I think the issue is what I'm seeing from a lot of women in this spiritual communities I'm mentioning to you is, oh, honey, you're just focusing on the wrong thing, but just do more meditation and you'll get there. And I could drop an F-bomb right now because
Yeah,
it
yeah,
drives me so,
absolutely.
it's so condescending and it's so disrespectful of each other's journeys.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting because, yeah, you and I have had some similar past lives, I believe. And that was something that really triggered me. My core wound is self-abandonment, which came from giving away my power to men. So you can see how the situation we are in globally right now is like, it's like my core story playing out in front of me. And in this lifetime, I've been using my voice for years. I still am a voiceover artist, but my voice was silenced, or I have told the story that men silenced my voice. And now I realize, oh, I gave it up to them. And I will not do that anymore. I absolutely won't. But I will say that when people would say things like that and I got triggered, I learned through this whole process of saying, okay, that's really interesting that that's triggering me. What is the pattern? So it's funny, before you said that, I was thinking, yeah, this is something that your audience would really benefit from, is to just observe the pattern. Like, ooh, that really lit a fire under me, made me mad. And by the way, angry is a whole lot better than fearful because you do something about
Mhm.
anger. So
Yep.
that's good. That's higher on the level of consciousness than fear. That's why I don't want you to stay down here in fear. Get mad, get loud,
Mhm.
but also look for the patterns that make you mad, because you will, if you can tap into that pattern and say, what is the thing that's triggering me? Is it something about me? Is it something I'm reflecting? Is it something I'm projecting? Once you figure that out once, the whole story collapses and you are no longer triggered. I actually am no longer triggered by your president. And I went into fight or flight looking at his face, hearing his voice for 8 years. I was so like, and rightly so. It's the one voice in the world that should really make everybody go into fight or flight. I no longer have any. And another reason for that, I don't know if you agree with this. I think a lot of his life force has been taken away. I don't,
Mhm.
I see him as impotent.
He's been neutered. Yeah, he's been
He's been
neutered.
neutered, and he's just spiritually, you know why? Because it's the death gasp of the patriarchy. And
Yep.
and somebody said the extinction burst. Have you heard this? I only heard about it the other day. And then I heard about it everywhere, which is what I love about the universe. Extinction burst is that, just as it sounds, just before something dies, it gets really, really loud. And so something that's not such a extreme example would be a toddler who's having a temper tantrum, and they just cry themselves out. They know they're not getting that candy, and they throw themselves on the floor and they beat the floor with and they sweat and they cry and you just let them do it, because in 5 minutes they'll be out like a light.
Right.
And that is what is happening when an animal knows it's caged, when something feels trapped and it knows it does not have long, it's going to get loud. And that is what we are experiencing now. We are in the middle of an extinction burst, which means, yay, it's going to be over soon. But oh my goodness, this is as hot and difficult and tumultuous as it could possibly be. And so that's why, again, I am not triggered, but that's because of the work I've done. And because, as you say, we all have our own journey. It's like my wounding is not your wounding. So I'm going to be triggered by different things than you are. I was triggered by people who voted for him. And I'm now at the point where I see that they are on a completely different journey, and we're probably not going to end up on the same timeline, right? Or in the same density. Those people probably have some more lifetimes to figure that out, and that's their path. And that's not a punishment, it's just a fact. And you and I will probably end up in a different timeline where things aren't so tumultuous, and where anger and fear doesn't guide us, where hope and love does, because that's where we are vibrating. And I think that's the other point when I say two different timelines. I feel like, as you say, if we're vibrating up here, why are we experiencing this down here? And that is, we are at a really interesting tipping point in the world and with humanity right now, where we are all experiencing all of it. So it's not anything you've done wrong. It's the path. So I just say, be curious and ask questions about why we feel the way we feel. And did it happen before? What's the pattern?
It's interesting you bringing up fear, because I believe that's underneath all of it. We've all heard that you're either coming from fear or you're coming from love.
That's
And
it.
Yoda's, which is George Lucas's words, I guess, where he said, fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate, hate leads to suffering. And
Yep.
we are seeing the result of that here in America, being force-fed fear constantly. Even when you look at television shows, their crime shows, their
Yep.
horror movie, it's fear, fear, fear. And that's how we are being controlled. And this is what's
Yes.
helping me to stop doom scrolling. If,
Yeah.
if you can put this in your head, because when I put it to myself, I'm contributing to the tyranny. I'm helping them stay where they are when I keep feeding myself fear. Because what's happened to me in the past week is, when I do it, my body starts shaking and I'm like,
Yeah.
what am I doing? And I really think it was spirit being like, pay attention to this. I knew I
Yes.
didn't like it. It's not like I thought it was good, but I
Yeah.
still need to stay informed. And now I'm realizing, wow, when I keep doing that, I'm keeping these people in place. And
Yep.
I have said this before. It was brilliantly evil that they took for their slogan, F your fear, right?
Yeah.
F your feelings. No, it was F your feelings, F your feelings.
Feelings. Yes.
Because
Yes.
the way out of all of this, because what that fear is, it's the trauma from childhood, right? And it gets buried, and anger is much more easier for us to deal with. We feel more powerful. So
Yes.
it
Well,
turns
it's
into anger.
acceptable. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Nobody wants to hear about your fears. Suck it up.
Right.
Suck it up.
Right.
Get tough.
That
So
toxic masculinity. Yeah.
yes, and that's what's happening. It's like the
Yeah.
culmination of a pressure cooker that's about to
Right.
blow, right? With
Exactly.
all this fear, fear, fear. And
Yeah.
so
Yep.
the way I look at it is looking at this fear, not wallowing in it, but turning from it. That's our healing, because the core of us, the beauty of us, it's in there. It's just under all the stuff,
Yep.
you know?
Yep.
So as we release it, we don't have to do anything. It just rises,
No,
right?
that's it. Oh, I love
Yeah.
that visual. That's beautiful. That's exactly what it is. And so, instead of thinking that, no, I have to do this, I have to be fearful. My father came, my parents live downstairs from me. My father just shows up like Kramer yesterday, and he's all fearful. He's watching MSNBC. He's like, you see what they're doing? And I said, Dad, you're feeding into it. You are allowing this to happen with every bit of energy that you give to it, every bit of negative energy, laughter, joy, love. Those are acts of rebellion right now. That's what we need to put our emphasis on. And if you would allow me, I'll just show you. This is the book this is so dog-eared with so many post-its, but this is
Oh
Letting
yeah,
Go.
I've seen. I think I might have read that years ago. How long ago did it come out? A long time?
Gosh, it was in the 90s or something. He's
Yeah,
passed
yeah.
since, Dr. David Hawk. I channeled him recently. I'm like, and he just showed up because I was saying, wait a minute, like this work, why is this not being seen by every human on earth? Because they don't want you to see it. And the they is a real thing. They want to keep you in fear. And when I said that, by the way, I felt the energy of David Hawkins. I was like, the world needs to know about this, right? Yes, I got an absolute full body chill. Yes. But it's so very simple. He calibrated the basically vibration of every level of every emotion. And going back here, it doesn't matter. You can look it up yourself. But basically, the turning point from that suffering and survival level, because that's where the world is right now, it seems. We started with shame. That's the absolute lowest vibrating emotion at 20. And then fear is 100. And there's other, all of those low vibrating emotions keep you in suffering and survival. That's where they want to keep you. That keeps them doing evil things, committing atrocities, keeping us under control. I know I sound like a crazy conspiracy theorist, but no such thing in 2025. I think we're figuring it out. That's what they want the world to think of us. But the turning point, I call it the watershed emotion, just for everybody out there who's like, how do I even tackle this? How do I get up there to love and peace when I'm feeling so much fear? Do you know that at level 200, it moves from negative to positive, and that is courage. Courage is 200. So you can still be fearful and have the courage to try something different. Have the courage to step out of your comfort zone. Have the courage to do something that might bring you joy. Have the courage to feel joy because, like I said, it's an act of rebellion and it's not dismissing those who are suffering. If we are aware of those who are suffering and we are bringing some levity to this world, you are helping those who are suffering. And again, Monsters Inc., what was it that got rid of the monsters? It was laughter. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's what we really
Yeah.
need. And so we don't have to jump from 0 to 100 in terms of well, I have to be the happiest and I have to be not toxic positivity, but what would courage allow you to do is what I would ask your audience. What could courage allow you to accomplish in terms of raising people's vibrations? Maybe it is getting out there and helping people who are unhomed, helping give refuge to people who are feeling threatened, speaking up, recording those who are being persecuted, using your privilege in these wonderful ways. That's courageous. And that is an amazing way to raise vibration. And I know Sam, Spirituality with Sam, I'm sure you follow her. She's been talking about the levels of consciousness and how you only need like one of us calibrating at around the 500 level to counteract like hundreds of thousands of negative people. So that is the power. We have the power. And we are just starting to understand that we have the power. As you said, you're doom scrolling and you have the power to say, all of that crap is on Netflix, all of this negativity. I used to like, true crime podcasts or looking at this. I used to love this stuff. I've decided I'm not going to watch it anymore.
Right.
That's something to turn away from and not feel guilty about at all. Like, what does bring me joy? What does make me feel good? Because your brain, that's another thing. When you said you were shaking looking at this, our bodies don't know the difference sometimes between a thought and an actual experience. I was watching a thriller movie a couple of weeks ago, and my dog, who's here, he's kind of an emotional support dog. He came over to me, and I didn't realize I hadn't been breathing in 2 minutes. I was like, every muscle in my body was tense, and he came and looked at me, made eye contact, like, "Are you good?" And I thought, you know what? I'm telling my body I'm in fight or flight right now. I'm in a dangerous situation, so maybe I shouldn't watch that kind of movie for a while. Maybe it's about looking. What would be great is just to look back at what brought you joy as a kid. And how can you bring that joy into your current life? We forget that playing is important and we don't play. It looks like I sense you are a creative type.
With
Am I right?
words,
An
yes.
artist?
I'm a writer. Yes, I
Right.
don't have artistic talents, but
Yeah.
writing I
Yeah.
can do, yes.
Yeah. And so
That's
that's
where it comes
playing
from.
for you, right? Like whatever that is, whatever
Yeah.
that came to mind, I'd say do that, do more of that. That's what the world needs.
And the thing is too that I have found the more the divine feminine rises within me is authenticity.
Mm,
Because I can tell you, up until my mid-30s, I was so Catholic. I followed all the rules. I tried so hard to do and be everything they told me I should do and be.
yeah.
And it basically really cut me off inside because the divine responds to authenticity. So I found that there, especially because I'm in the US right now, and like I said, it's like stuff is really happening. We're not
Yeah.
imagining it.
Yeah.
It's really
No, it's
happening.
true.
It's
It's true.
affecting all of us, some of
Mm,
us way more than others,
mm,
but it's happening. And I find sometimes I need to let myself cry. And I
mhm.
had that
Oh,
on
yeah.
when was the full moon? Tuesday, Wednesday. I always forget.
Wednesday.
It's so funny because I will be freaking out, like just I don't. What is wrong with me? And then eventually, as the day goes on, I'll be like, oh, full moon tonight. So everything's coming up. I
Thumbs
forget that.
up.
But the
Yes.
biggest thing is this is for me because my journey has been all about courage, finding the courage to speak up, be true to myself. Because if you're
Mhm.
being authentic, this is the one big thing. I can't remember if I mentioned when we were live or not that I was in Mexico in these caves and everything and these portals.
Mhm.
It was literally a life-changing experience.
Wow.
But the thing that became very clear to me is there are no rules. They're all made
It's
up.
all
They're
made to keep
all
you
made up.
down.
So all
Yes.
this performing for this invisible God in the sky that will then pat us on the head is bullshit.
No,
It's
we
just
are
made up.
God. We are
Yes,
God. There is,
exactly.
the God exists. It is us. God isn't all about, you're so right. Rules were made to keep you down. And I'm sure you and I, being raised in the same generation, were told, and you're in the Catholic, I was in the United Church, but still, there were always rules. And good
Mm-hmm.
girls, especially, good boys and girls, but mostly good girls, didn't speak up, and I was raised by lovely people, but people who, like my dad last night, uh, make decisions based on fear. And I would say never make a decision based on fear, unless it is to avoid the saber-toothed tiger. But otherwise, it's like make the decision on what brings you joy and light. And once you do turn down that ego and you worry less about pleasing people and what people think of you, then you end up being an amazing, extraordinary human, right? You
Right.
give light to the world when you are true to yourself. And so many of us, all of us, I'd say, to this point, have been raised in a way that says, no, 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 you behave, you follow the rules. And you're right, there are no rules are made to suppress. And
Yeah, that's
the
the
only
biggest
rules you should,
struggle. I'm
yeah.
sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt
No,
you.
no, no, it's okay. I was pretty much done.
Is the struggle to um I was going to say unleashed, which is I'll tell you about that word, but anyway, unleash
Uh,
ourselves from all these rules and what
yeah.
we're told is acceptable and what's not.
Mhm.
Because once we can do that, we can connect better with who we really are. And like I said, some
Mhm.
days I will cry, and
Yeah.
that's a release, and then more of that truth of who I am can rise up. But when I was the night of after the election, the next day, I went down to the lagoon on this big deck over the water where we would have all our ceremonies and stuff. But I couldn't fit because there was no talking about politics there. That was not acceptable. And I had this feeling in my stomach like I wasn't here. Like something, am
Mhm.
I here? What is it was the strangest feeling. And I had to get away from everyone because I had a feeling I was going to start crying or something.
Right, right.
So I went up to my room and the maid was in there and I was like, oh. So I went out on the patio and there was a stone bench there. Now, in my mind, I wasn't showing anything outwardly, but my girlfriend Wendy grabbed this other girl and was like, I think we should check on Mary, which
Mhm.
shocks me because, like I said, I thought
Yeah.
I was being very stoic and nobody knew. But anyway,
Mhm.
I'm on this bench and they open the slide the door open and the one she peeps her head out and she goes, Mary, what's wrong? And I said, I don't know. And as soon as I said that, I collapsed onto this bench like someone just pulled the plug on me and all this sorrow came through and it was not mine alone. It
No.
was centuries and
Yeah.
centuries of abuse and degradation and denying the
Yeah.
divine feminine and the suffering of all of her daughters. And it was just literally, I was like a rag doll and it was just the weeping and sorrow was just
Yes.
beyond. And then that went on for a bit. And then all of a sudden I flipped over and the screams that came out of me. Actually, other people at the resort requested that we do our ceremony somewhere else because
Right,
it
right. Well,
disturbed
it
them.
worked.
But I couldn't help. But anyway, so
Yeah.
this was her. I could feel her power like coming up.
Yeah.
And all I kept hearing was unleashed, unleashed.
Unleashed. I love that.
And that was it. It was like,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
we cried. This did
Hmm.
happen, all that sorrow. And then it was like, don't forget who you are because you are bigger than this. This is not going to sink you. And
Right.
that's kind of the
Right.
journey I've been on. I still kind of am going here,
Yeah.
unleashed, here, like, huh, little uncomfortable, little scary. Everyone
Sure.
doesn't like this side, you know?
Well, you're reintegrating. Now, was this the night of the election? Like, was this
Yes.
when it
Well, it was
happened?
the
Okay.
morning right
Or
after.
the morning after, exactly, the
Yeah,
3 a.m. club. So you are
right.
part of the 3 a.m. club.
Yes.
And yeah, the I mean, as you say, it's centuries of, and that's what we felt. For me, again, we all have our different journey. For me, it was, I mean, I think I felt that kind of fear and rage and anger in 2016. I remember that. And I was in a terrible marriage at the time with someone who didn't even validate my feelings on that, interestingly enough. And I'm pretty sure would have voted for him if he were American. And so that was, I had been there too. And I cried and was told I was overreacting and didn't have any validation. This time it was like, it was a knowing. It was a knowing that that had to happen. And I would say to anybody who's like fighting back the tears, do not. I had another release, probably, as you said, the day of the full moon. I was listening to a podcast and I all of a sudden they were talking about a rocking chair with a baby. And I thought of my mother. So I'm healing my mother wounds. I'm healing my own wounds, with my daughter. And I had this most amazing release. And it's after that that you can start thinking clearly, where you're thinking from your prefrontal cortex. You notice, you feel really clear after having that kind of cry. And I would also say, we had these reactions, whatever they were, but the further we get from that election, the more I realized that if what we wanted to happen had happened, we would have just prolonged this pain and made it worse. If Kamala had actually won, I think that she wouldn't have had a chance to be the leader that she really could be, right? I think that the world, I mean, I hate to say the world wasn't ready. The world is ready now. The world is getting ready now. But I think that there is just too much ugliness that still had to bubble up and show its face. I've always thought of it as a big, this is awful, but like a giant boil that, you can't build something new on this giant festering, boil. It's got to come up. All the ick has got to come up. And with that, we're feeling it, right? It's like earthquake after earthquake. And the earth herself is experiencing this. If you look at the Schumann resonance, I mean, all of us are feeling this to one degree or another, but it had to happen, I think. I mean, I hate to say that. What do you think?
This is how I look at it. I think we were going here anyway, right? This was our destiny, this
Aha.
evolution of humanity to a much better place where we're more aligned with the truth of us. And I think we always, free will is so respected. That is brought home to me over and over,
Mm.
is they will guide, they will offer help when asked, but they will
Yes.
never interfere. A lot of times when I'm writing, with my guides or whatever, they'll say, are you asking for guidance or instruction? And then I go, I
Aha.
know you don't give instructions, okay,
Right, right,
guidance.
right.
But I feel like we were here and we knew we were going here on a
Hmm.
subconscious level or whatever, and we had a
Hmm.
choice. We could take this road using love and joy, few bumps, but
Hmm.
we would learn how to do cooperation and make shifts. That's the divine feminine. She doesn't have to
Hmm.
destroy to rebuild. She can adjust, just like when people buy fixer-uppers. They don't knock the whole house down. Sometimes that happens, but they get in there and just start ripping
Hmm.
out walls and doing this. We could have gone that way. Unfortunately, the
Hmm.
energy, and this was a hard time I had with realizing so many women in the spiritual realms were listening to channelers instead of getting clear information and listening to him for themselves. They were just saying, who should I vote for? And
Right.
so ended up aligning with Nazis and the KKK and
Yep. Yep.
very hateful, the most hateful groups we have in our society, and ended up helping them. So now we're
Yeah.
on this road. So there's There's not much
Yeah.
we can do but just keep envisioning, because I think always love is so much more powerful, like I said, so much more powerful
So
than any other
powerful.
emotion. So maybe
Hmm.
we can make this road a little easier. And I absolutely believe this is all about remembering our own sovereignty. We
Oh,
need to go inside, stop looking. And I get that. When I first started on my spiritual journey, I was always a big reader. Remember bookstores? You
yeah.
read
Oh
your
gosh.
book and listen to the Victrola. But
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I would go into a
Amazing.
bookstore
Yeah.
and I would just close my eyes in front of like the spiritual self-help, and I'd be like, just please lead me to the book. And whenever I'd go, Wayne Dyer, no, because he was all about take care of yourself, self-responsibility, thoughts were,
Right.
and I was like, I don't want to do it. I want something else. I don't want you to tell me it's up to me, because I'll probably just screw it up. I didn't trust
Yeah.
myself or whatever. So
Mhm.
I understand, because we've been well trained from the time we're little, going to school, bosses at work, whatever. Look outside for the authority. Listen to what the authorities are telling you. And this time is all about you are your own authority. We need to
Yes.
go inside ourselves. So that's
Yes.
kind of my thinking is, I wish we would have chosen the
Yeah.
road of joy and
Yeah.
love and cooperation, but we didn't. So
Yeah. I know. Yeah, I would say, I mean, I agree. And yet you made a really good point in terms of the sovereignty, looking within. This is our invitation to look within. I'm lucky. I never thought I would say this because I have been through the time of my life. I mean, the it's been the most tumultuousness I have ever experienced over the last year and a half. So a year and a half ago, I went through a breakup. Now, I've had two marriages that ended in divorce that did not affect me as much as this one 10-month relationship. But I knew the morning that it ended, I went out in my front lawn over here. I looked ridiculous. I had a little camping chair and I sat there on this beautiful sunny day and I was like, this is my guides have led me here and this is for a reason. So I started loving myself, listening to myself, building a beautiful relationship with myself. I remember saying, this is not going to mean nothing. I am not going to let this mean nothing. It is going to mean something. And I knew I was being prepared for this. So I feel lucky that I am now here to be able to guide others in the same way you are, to say, no, this is our invitation to love self and realize we are all God. We are all one. And that and I think one of the lessons a lot of us have not learned yet, still, the most well-meaning, loving of us have not learned, is that there is no us and them. And that, I mean, and I'm ashamed to say that I never even considered until yesterday. Well, no, I can't say I never consider. I have considered this when it comes to your president, actually, that sending loving feelings is one of the best things you could do, and the hardest things you can do. But when we hate and divide, that is, again, that's what they want. And so if you can actually send love to the bad guy, the villain, um, I know it's a tall order. It's going to take a lot of us time to get there, and maybe we'll never get there. But I do know that we need to stop with the divisiveness. Their side, our side. There is no such thing. Yes, they may have treated you terribly. It's not saying it's okay for them to treat you terribly. It's saying that I love and accept myself so much that I can actually send love to you, because I know that your thing against me has everything to do with you and nothing to do with me. When I know and trust and love myself, I am solid in my foundation. And so this can upset me, this can maybe rattle me, but it's not going to shake my foundation. I know who I am. And I know that you are, you know what, when it's time for you to join the whole, the ocean of which we are all drops, you will do that. Again, everyone's on their own path, but I think it really helps those of us who are healing, and it never ends, but those of us who are healing, to say, I would much rather get in a position of being able to just think loving, joyful thoughts. That is the ultimate act of rebellion, right?
yeah,
And I
that's
still
true.
say us and them, but if we could just not say that, to
Yeah.
say humanity,
I
right?
know
Humanity needs this.
it's very hard, and we have to
Yeah.
remember we are human beings. We're spiritual beings having
Yes.
human
Having a human
experience. And I
experience.
think
Yeah.
too much in the spiritual circles, we try and skip over that.
Yeah.
And
You're right. I do.
we're human. This
Yeah.
is going to happen. And
Yeah.
I have a few different feelings, because my work is all about women and healing women. And I still believe, until we stop normalizing the sexual assault of women, we're not going to get anywhere, because as long as
Absolutely.
we're one sex is preying on the other sex, and we've
Yeah.
normalized it. I mean,
Yeah.
look at our administration.
Yep.
It's
Yep.
just like it doesn't even stop you from having these amazing jobs. That's how normal that we've made it.
Hmm.
So I am seeing on a lot of spiritual boards, pray for the must pray for 45, all this. And for me, it feel because anytime, I promise you, Alyssa, anytime, like I like gatherings of women. I love men.
Hmm.
I have several girlfriends who are lesbian, but one of them was like, "You'd have made such a good lesbian, Mary." I'm like, I know, but I just
But you just happen to be more
yeah,
loving men.
you
Yep.
can't trust me if
Right.
it was a choice. But yeah,
Right.
no, because I just
So
came here
true.
really to be a mouthpiece for women and to
Hmm.
champion women. But what I
Hmm.
see all the time is, say if I'm planning a retreat or something,
Hmm.
and I'll say, it's just women when because we're trying to remember what spirituality looks like. The divine, she's a race. We have no books. All we've got is
Hmm.
the memories in ourselves. So we
Yeah.
need to figure this out.
Yeah.
They do studies behind glass where they'll like introduce a topic, and it'll be all women, and they'll be like, da, 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 da. And then they'll introduce a man or two into there, and then whoosh, the
Yeah.
women are much quieter, the men
Of
dominate. It's just
course.
programming. It's nobody's
Yeah.
fault or anything. It's just the way we're programmed. But whenever
Hmm.
I say I just want women, they're all like, oh, but men are hurting too. And they
Yeah.
always jump to the fence of
It's
men.
like saying Black Lives Matter, White Lives Matter. I mean,
Yes,
come on. Yeah.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Until we give
100%.
voice to all
Hmm.
this that we've been carrying forever,
Yeah.
like the
Yeah.
sorrow and the screams that were coming out of me, I don't. And like I said, on the spiritual message boards, the ones that I still go to, I think let's put some love toward the immigrants, toward the people of color, toward Black, toward all these people who are suffering, because this came really clear to me in a meditation. The consequences of their choices are on their shoulders.
Uh-huh.
So
100%.
whatever choices they made, their consequences are on them. They will find their way.
That's your
I
karma. Yeah.
hate is not good, right? Like
Yeah.
that's not going to help anything. And
Right.
I've danced around it. I'm not where you are yet,
Hmm.
but I am to a point where I don't feel hate. I
Right.
don't feel like that.
Awesome.
And I
Yeah.
am getting to a point where I may be a bit more neutral. I'm not feeling love for these people yet. I don't know
Right.
that I
Right.
ever
Right.
will.
No, and
But
I mean,
so
I'm not saying I'm fully there yet either, but it's a
yeah,
process, right?
I feel kind of like where I'm at spiritually is I want to focus on obviously my own spiritual evolution and the people who are suffering, like-minded. I don't want to spend a lot of energy.
No.
I mean, I do the meditations where I put the whole world in, and I do when I think sometimes I will send them love, but I don't want that to be the focus of my energy.
Yeah.
They're on their own journeys too. I want to make sure I'm
Mhm.
giving that love to the people who are really suffering right now.
I agree. And here's the and is the word the operative word here. I was going to say too often we say, well, it has to be this or that. It's and we
Oh, I
need
like that.
spaces for women to feel safe sharing their feelings and experiences and shouting. I was thinking the other day we got to have female rage rooms. That's what I want to do.
Oh,
That's
I
a whole
love
other
that.
story. I'd love to run my own. And we need to gather men together in a place where they can actually feel safe expressing an emotion other than anger. That's why anger is so prevalent, because it's the only acceptable male emotion. And so, we could trace that back. That's the problem. This toxic masculinity has told them they're not, the men up. You can't, big boys don't cry. All of this where, so both of those things need to happen. They do not need to happen together, right? We need to,
That's a really
we
good
need to
point.
respect this. Men, I'm not going to go on and show up in a men's group and say, hey, I hear y'all are exploring your feelings. Can I be part of it too? I hurt too. It's not the forum for me. There is a time and a place. I can wish them well and go join my own group here. And it doesn't always have to be divided by gender, but when we're talking about connecting with our emotions, then yes, right now, humanity is at a place where the female identifying people need to have a safe space. And the male identifying people who want to explore that, thank God there are so many of them now, need to have that own their own
Yeah,
space.
those are
Yeah,
really,
totally
really
separate.
good points.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so before we wrap up, we did talk a
Mm.
little about, well, activism and all the other things. Is there anything that you'd like to say regarding spirituality, activism, any of these things that we covered?
Yeah, I mean, I think I think I've hit the point home, but I mean, I will come back to it just in case I haven't, that you are all intuitive. We are all intuitive. We all have these abilities. So if you are following somebody on TikTok who is, like the ethical psychic or, spirituality with Sam, and you're looking to them, or you are looking to Kamala to save us, or realize that yes, we are a village, and yes, we are here for each other, and our connections are what just makes life so beautiful. And not but, and the answers are all within you. You have the wisdom of the ages inside you. So whatever you need to do to connect with and trust that part of you and develop that intuitive part of you, do that. Whatever lights you up, do that, because that is your inner self, your higher self, whatever you want to call it, your highest, best self begging to be revealed. And we are in a moment of things breaking. And when they crack, that's how the light gets in. So since it's all breaking down, break down what doesn't work for you and really connect with your truest best self. That's my biggest advice to anybody. And we can all do it in whatever way works for us.
Perfect. Thank you. That's a perfect way to close. Now, if people want to
Mhm.
get in touch with you, if you do intuitive coaching, you said,
I
right?
do, I do. So it's elissalansdell.com, ELISSALANSDELL. I don't know if you put it in your notes, but or you could just find me on TikTok. So it's at
The
Intuition
link will be on
Influencer.
YouTube. It'll
Okay,
be.
great. Oh, good. On YouTube, and I'm also on YouTube. And so, yes, if you go to my TikTok, or I don't know if it's on my YouTube, I have a link tree, and you can find all of those things that are going on. I'm doing actually an intuition mastery class on February 22nd. Not sure when this is going up, but if anybody wants to connect with their inner self, that's a good way to do it. And yeah, you can
I'll
find me
try.
on.
I'll try to get it up. I'll get it up next week. I'll get it up before
Yeah,
then.
no worries. Okay.
Okay, great.
Yes,
Thank you so much,
you
Elissa.
are very welcome, Mary. Great
All
talking
right.
to you.